Part 1, The Mockery. The Galactic Council chamber floated in space like a giant crystal diamond. It orbited a dead star that pulsed with strange light. Inside the chamber, 200 alien races gathered to judge humanity. Daewon Kim stood at the center platform feeling very small. His simple black suit looked plain next to the shimmering bodies and flowing robes of the aliens around him. Beside him, Hyojin Park carried a data tablet. She was 34 years old and one of Earth's smartest engineers. Her hands shook slightly. They had practiced this presentation for months, but nothing prepared them for the reality. The chamber was so big that clouds formed near its ceiling. The air smelled like ozone and something sweet that made Daewon's nose itch. Ambassador Velthar spoke first. The crystalline being looked like living glass, with light moving through its body in waves. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. Humanity requests full membership in the Interstellar Coalition. We have reviewed your technological progress over 50 years. Please present your military capabilities. Daewon pressed a button. Holographic images appeared above his head, showing Earth's warships and weapons. We have developed nuclear fusion drives that can push our ships to 15% light speed. Our quantum computers can calculate jump coordinates in seconds. We have weapons that fire solid projectiles at extremely high velocities using magnetic acceleration. A sound filled the chamber. It took Daewon a moment to realize what it was. Laughter. The aliens were laughing at them. A massive reptilian creature stood up. High Commander Thex of the Kryn Empire had scales like black metal and eyes like yellow fire. They still throw rocks. In space, how primitive. His voice boomed across the chamber. More laughter followed. Hyojin stepped forward, her face turning red. Our railguns can fire tungsten rounds at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy alone, kinetic energy? A gaseous cloud that called itself Synthesizer Ool, rippled with what might have been amusement. We phase our weapons through normal space. Your solid projectiles would never touch our ships. They are too slow, too predictable, too simple. Velthar raised one crystalline hand. The laughter stopped. Humanity, your fusion drives are based on chemical reaction principles we abandoned 10,000 years ago. We use zero-point energy drawn directly from quantum foam. Your computers are impressive for silicon-based technology, but we use quantum entanglement networks that span galaxies instantly. And your weapons, the ambassador paused. Your weapons are museum pieces. Daewon felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. He had been an asteroid miner before becoming a diplomat. He learned patience in the cold dark of space. Our weapons are reliable. They don't require exotic matter or constant maintenance. They work every time. Because they are so simple. Thex laughed again. My Empire's molecular disintegration beams can tear apart matter at the atomic level. We point, we fire, the target ceases to exist. Your railguns require you to aim manually, to calculate trajectories like ancient sailors. It is embarrassing that you present this as military technology. Another alien spoke. This one looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. We have gravitational wave weapons that can crush a planet from light years away. We have dark matter missiles that cannot be detected until they strike. We have weaponized the strong nuclear force itself. And you bring us guns, very fast guns, yes, but still just guns. Hyojin tried again. The advantage of kinetic weapons is their simplicity. There's no energy signature to detect, no exotic particles that can be traced, just mass and velocity. Basic physics that can't be countered easily. Countered? Ool's gaseous form rippled. Child, our defensive shields operate in 17 dimensions. Your three-dimensional projectiles would simply pass through folded space and emerge nowhere near us. We have evolved beyond physical warfare. Energy is the future. Matter is the past. The council chamber filled with murmuring voices. Daewon heard words in hundreds of languages, but the tone was universal. Condescension, pity, amusement. These ancient civilizations looked at humanity like adults watching children play with toys. Velthar spoke again. Humanity has shown courage in reaching for the stars. You have developed impressive technology for such a young species, but you are not ready for full membership. We grant you associate status. You may trade in designated zones. You may settle on approved worlds, but you will not participate in council decisions. You will not receive access to advanced technologies, and you will not interfere in galactic affairs, especially military affairs. Thex added with a snort. Leave war to those who understand it. Go back to your little corner of space and play with your railguns. Try not to hurt yourselves. Daewon bowed his head. We accept the Council's decision. Thank you for your consideration. His voice stayed level, showing none of the frustration burning inside him. As they walked back to their ship, Hyojin was quiet. Finally, she spoke. They're wrong, you know, about kinetic weapons. They've forgotten the basics. All their fancy technology requires massive infrastructure. Zero-point energy needs collectors the size of moons. Quantum networks need relay stations in every system. Their weapons need exotic matter that only exists near black holes. And ours? Daewon asked. Ours need metal and electricity. That's it. Any ship can carry them. Any factory can make them. They're laughing at us, but they've made themselves dependent on complexity. We kept things simple. Daewon smiled slightly. Nobody respects simple. Not until complex fails. Their ship, the New Soul, was small compared to the alien vessels docked nearby. It looked like a metal tube with engines. No flowing curves, no crystalline spires, no ships that looked like living creatures. Just practical human engineering. Inside, the crew waited for news. Captain Ji-won Lee met them at the airlock. She was 41 with short gray hair and sharp eyes. How bad? Associate status only, Daewon said. They laughed at our weapons. Ji-won nodded slowly. Figures. Aliens always think newer means better. They forget that a sharp stick works just as well as it did a million years ago, as long as you stick it in the right place. Daewon's communication device buzzed. He looked at the screen and frowned. There's an encrypted message from the outer colonies. Unknown hostiles attacking mining stations in the Kepler sector. Pirates? Hyojin asked. Maybe. The message is garbled. Daewon forwarded it to the Council's emergency network. An hour later, they received a response. Velthar's message was brief. Minor disturbance in an irrelevant sector. Not worth Council attention. Local security will handle it. Ji-won read the message over Daewon's shoulder. They're not even going to investigate? The Kepler sector is on the rim. Nothing important there according to them. Just some human mining colonies and a few independent settlements. Nothing important, Ji-won repeated. Except the people living there. Daewon looked out the viewport at the massive alien ships. They gleamed with advanced technology, powered by forces humans barely understood. Beautiful, sophisticated, and powerful beyond measure. But as he watched, he noticed something. Every ship had support vessels surrounding it. Maintenance drones, fuel collectors, parts haulers. The alien ships couldn't function without constant support. The New Soul needed only a crew and a destination. Set course for Earth, Daewon ordered. We need to report to Admiral Sunhee. Something tells me those attacks in the Kepler sector are going to matter more than the Council thinks. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, none of them knew that the unknown hostiles were not pirates. They were something the galaxy had never seen before, something that would make the Council's advanced weapons useless, something that would turn humanity's primitive tools into the only hope for survival. The jump drive engaged. The New Soul vanished into quantum space, leaving the crystal chamber and its laughing aliens behind. Part 2, The Swarm arrives. 3 months passed since the Council's rejection. In that time, 17 star systems went silent. No distress calls, no final messages. Just silence where voices used to be. The Galactic Council called emergency meetings but reached no conclusions. They sent investigation teams that never returned. Captain Ji-won Lee stood on the bridge of the human frigate Indomitable, studying the star charts. Her ship patrolled near New Sejong, a human colony world with 2 million people. It was supposed to be a quiet assignment. 3 weeks of routine patrols, then back to Earth for resupply. But quiet ended when the communications officer shouted across the bridge. Captain! Multiple distress signals from the Luminoth outpost. 3 systems away. Ji-won moved to the communication station. Let me hear it. Static filled the bridge, then a voice speaking in the musical language of the crystalline Luminoth. The translation computer worked frantically. Absorbing everything, shields failing, they learned too fast by the eternal light. They're inside the message ended in a scream that sounded like shattering glass. Tae Yang Choi. The weapons officer looked up from his console. At 29, he was the youngest senior officer on the ship. Captain, the Luminoth system is 4 hours away at maximum speed. By the time we arrive, we might learn what's killing entire star systems. Ji-won finished. Helm set course. Maximum speed. Battle stations. The Indomitable was not a large ship. Compared to alien vessels, it looked like a metal brick with engines. but it was fast and its railguns could punch holes through most shields. The crew of 120 prepared for whatever waited ahead. 4 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel and saw hell. The Luminoth home system had 3 planets orbiting a yellow star. Now the star looked sick, its light flickering and dim. Massive structures surrounded it, drinking its energy like parasites. The planets were worse. Their surfaces had been cracked open, and huge machines dug into their cores, pulling out raw matter. "What in God's name?" Tae Yang whispered. Ji-won's mouth felt dry. "Scan for survivors. Any Luminoth ships, stations, anything." The science officer shook his head. "Nothing, Captain. No life signs. No power signatures except from those things around the star. Wait, I'm picking up something. There's a battle in progress near the 4th planet." The view screen shifted. A Kryn battle fleet, 12 massive warships, faced a swarm of enemy vessels. The enemy ships looked organic, like insects made of metal and flesh. They moved in perfect coordination, thousands of smaller craft supporting dozens of larger ones. "Get me a visual on their weapons," Ji-won ordered. What she saw made her blood run cold. The Kryn opened fire with their molecular disintegration beams, weapons that could tear apart solid matter at the atomic level. The beams struck the enemy ships and stopped. The swarm vessels absorbed the energy, their hulls glowing briefly. Then they fired back with identical beams. They copied the weapon, the tactical officer said, in seconds. They absorbed it, analyzed it, and reproduced it. The Kryn fleet tried everything: gravitational wave weapons, dark matter missiles, quantum disruption fields. Each weapon was absorbed, copied, and used against them. In 17 minutes, the proud Kryn fleet was debris. "All stop," Ji-won commanded quietly. "Silent running. Cut all non-essential power. I want us invisible." The Indomitable drifted in the dark between planets. On the view screen, the swarm began consuming the wreckage of the Kryn ships. Now Ji-won could see them clearly. They looked like a nightmare combination of machine and living creature. Silicon-based biology merged with technology in ways that made no sense to human eyes. "They're called Devourers," the science officer said, reading data streaming across his console. "The computer is matching them to old legends from the core worlds. Stories about creatures from dark space that consume everything. Nobody believed they were real." "They're real," Ji-won said. "And they just destroyed the most powerful military fleet in this sector. Communications record everything we're seeing. Every scan, every reading. We need to get this information back to Earth." "Captain," Tae Yang said carefully, "those things adapted to every energy weapon the Kryn used. Our railguns use kinetic energy, not exotic particles or quantum effects. Just solid matter moving very fast." Ji-won looked at him. "You think our primitive weapons might work where their advanced ones failed? I think they've never seen anything like our weapons. They adapted to the Kryn because they'd encountered energy-based weapons before. But kinetic weapons? That's old technology. Ancient. Maybe too ancient for them to have in their genetic memory or whatever they use." "Maybe," Ji-won said. "But we're not testing that theory here. Not alone. We need to warn everyone, Earth, the Council, everyone." The journey back to Earth took 6 days. Ji-won sent encrypted messages ahead, but she knew words wouldn't be enough. She needed to show them what she'd recorded. The Indomitable arrived at Earth's orbital defense station to find Admiral Sun Hee-han waiting. Sun Hee was 56 years old and had spent 40 years in Earth's Navy. She had short gray hair, a scarred face from an accident years ago, and eyes that missed nothing. She listened to Ji-won's report without interrupting, watching the recordings 3 times. "They adapt to energy weapons," Sun Hee said finally. "Every advanced technology in the galaxy is based on exotic particles, quantum effects, or matter energy conversion. And these Devourers learn to counter all of it in minutes." "Yes, Admiral. But our weapons don't use any of that. Our railguns are just electromagnets accelerating metal. Our missiles are just explosives. Basic chemistry and physics." "Yes, Admiral." Sun Hee called an emergency meeting. The Defense Council gathered in a secure room deep inside the orbital station. Daewon attended along with Hyo-jin and the heads of Earth's military branches. The recordings played on the large screen while Sun Hee explained the situation. "The Galactic Council is finally taking this seriously," Daewon said. "They're assembling the largest combined fleet in history. 2,000 ships from 50 different races. They're making their stand at a place called the Contested Zone, 12 systems from here. And they invited us?" One general asked. They didn't invite us. They demanded we participate. Associate members are required to contribute forces during galactic emergencies. Hyojin stood up. She had spent 3 days analyzing the recordings, barely sleeping. I have a proposal. It sounds crazy, but look at the data. Every time the Devourers encounter an energy weapon, they adapt within minutes. Their hulls physically change to absorb that specific energy type, but there's no evidence they can do the same with kinetic impacts. How do you adapt to a solid object hitting you at a significant fraction of light speed? You either have enough armor to stop it or you don't. There's no exotic physics to learn. You want to fight them with our old technology? Another officer asked. I want to fight them with physics they can't outsmart. Mass times velocity equals momentum. Momentum transfers to target on impact. Basic Newtonian mechanics that have been true since the universe began. The Devourers are sophisticated, but sophistication can't change fundamental physics. Sun He nodded slowly. The Council thinks our weapons are primitive. They put us in the rear guard because they expect us to be slaughtered. Then let's surprise them, Ji-won said. The Admiral smiled. It was not a nice smile. Prepare the fleet. Every railgun, every coil gun, every mass driver we have. Load solid ammunition. Tungsten, depleted uranium, anything dense and hard. We're going to war and we're bringing weapons older than spaceflight itself. The Council will laugh at us, Daewon warned. Let them laugh, Sun He replied. They laughed at us 3 months ago. They'll stop laughing when they see what happens when you throw rocks at something that can't adapt to rocks. Earth's fleet began preparations. 47 warships. Small by galactic standards, but armed with weapons the galaxy had forgotten. In the weapons bays, crews loaded solid metal rods, simple, cheap, and deadly. In the command centers, tacticians studied firing solutions based on mathematics that went back centuries. Tai Yang checked his weapons console on the Indomitable one more time. The railgun capacitors were fully charged. The ammunition feeds were loaded with tungsten penetrators. Each rod was just metal, nothing fancy, but accelerated to 30% of light speed. Each rod carried enough kinetic energy to vaporize a city block. Simple and basic, he muttered to himself. Just the way we like it. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed, heading for the contested zone. Behind them, Earth waited. Ahead of them, the largest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and humanity was bringing weapons so old, so primitive, that the enemy had never learned to defend against them. The contested zone looked like someone had scattered stars across black canvas. 12 systems formed a rough sphere, and in the center floated the largest war fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. 2,000 ships from 50 different civilizations. Some were kilometers long, made of living metal. Others were pure energy contained in force fields. A few existed partially in other dimensions, their shapes hurting human eyes to look at. The human fleet looked tiny beside them. 47 ships, all metal and simple geometry. They had been placed in the rear guard, as far from the main battle as possible. The Council expected them to watch and learn. Maybe rescue survivors if things went badly. Commander Young-Ho Bae stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, a heavy cruiser armed with the largest railgun humanity had ever built. He was 38 with graying hair and steady hands. He had spent 15 years as an artillery officer on Earth before joining the Space Navy. He understood ballistics the way some people understood music. Status report, he said calmly. His tactical officer responded. All human ships report ready. Railguns charged. Mass driver ammunition loaded. We're receiving targeting data from Admiral Sun He's flagship. Good. Now we wait. He didn't have to wait long. The Devourers arrived in a wave that turned the view screen dark. Thousands of ships poured out of faster-than-light space. They moved like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. Their hulls gleamed with that disturbing mix of machine and flesh. The Council fleet opened fire immediately. It was the most impressive display of advanced technology Young-Ho had ever seen. Phase disruptors that attacked targets in multiple dimensions. Quantum torpedoes that existed in all possible locations simultaneously until they hit. Antimatter beams bright enough to hurt even through filtered view screens. Weapons that bent space, stopped time, or weaponized fundamental forces. For 3 minutes, it was beautiful. The Devourers' front lines dissolved under the barrage. Hundreds of enemy ships exploded or simply ceased to exist. The Council fleet's commanders probably thought they were winning. Then the Devourers adapted. Young-Ho watched it happen in real time. The enemy ships' hulls changed, their surface becoming mirror-smooth, then crystalline. then something that looked like frozen lightning. Each change made them resistant to different weapon types. The quantum torpedoes passed through them harmlessly. The antimatter beams reflected back at their sources. The exotic force attacks were absorbed and used to power devourer weapons. Within 10 minutes, the Council fleet was dying. Ships exploded by the dozens. Some were pulled apart by their own weapons, reflected and amplified. Others were boarded by devourer swarms that ripped through hulls like paper. The beautiful formations broke apart into chaos. High Commander Thex's voice came over the emergency channel. The proud Kryn sounded panicked. "Fall back. All ships fall back. Their adaptation rate is too fast. We can't—" His transmission ended in static. Admiral Sun He's calm voice cut through the chaos. "Human fleet, this is Sun He. Execute attack pattern Delta. Show them what primitive means." Young Ho smiled. "All batteries target the Devourer command cluster. Solution Alpha 7. Fire on my mark." The Thunderbolt's main railgun hummed with power. Inside the weapon, magnetic coils aligned in perfect sequence. At the far end, a tungsten carbide rod waited. It was 30 centimeters wide, 2 meters long, and weighed 400 kilograms. "Nothing special. Just very dense metal. Mark," Young Ho said. The railgun fired. The tungsten rod accelerated down the barrel, pushed by magnetic forces. It left the ship at 30% of light speed. No guidance system. No warhead. No exotic particles or quantum effects. Just a very heavy object moving very fast. It hit a Devourer cruiser 3 seconds later. The kinetic energy, mass times velocity squared divided by 2, was equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The Devourer ship tried to adapt its hull, but there was nothing to adapt to. The rod punched through the front armor, through the ship's core and out the back, creating a tunnel of vaporized metal and flesh. The ship broke in half. "Target destroyed," the tactical officer reported, sounding surprised. "Their shields didn't even slow it down." "Because there's nothing to shield against," Young Ho said. "It's just physics. Reload, next target." All across the human fleet, railguns fired. The cruiser Daejeon launched a spread of depleted uranium rounds from its multiple smaller guns. The destroyer Busan used its coil gun batteries to create a wall of metal projectiles. Every human ship fired solid ammunition at targets that had adapted to counter every advanced weapon in the galaxy. The Devourers didn't know how to respond. Their hulls tried to change, tried to adapt, but what defense works against a solid object? Thicker armor? Some of them tried that, making their hulls denser. But the human weapons adjusted. They fired heavier rounds or aimed for joints and weak points. Better shields? Kinetic energy passed right through energy shields. The Devourers' sophisticated adaptive systems were useless. Bo-Ra Shin piloted the Corvette Silent Arrow through the battlefield like a dancer. At 27, she was the youngest ship commander in the fleet, but her reflexes were unmatched. Her small ship carried precision railguns designed for surgical strikes. "Devourer command node, 2 o'clock high," her targeting officer called. "I see it," Bo-Ra replied. She rolled the Silent Arrow into a dive, coming at the target from below. The Devourers were focused on the larger human ships. They didn't notice the small Corvette until it was too late. Bo-Ra fired a single depleted uranium round. It hit the command node exactly where her calculations predicted. The center of mass where biological and mechanical systems met. The node exploded from the inside. "That's 3 command nodes down," she reported. "Moving to next target." The alien ships in the Council fleet watched in shock. Ambassador Velthar's crystalline form shimmered with confusion on the shared command channel. How? How are their primitive weapons working when ours failed? Misuno, coordinator of the human AI systems, answered from her position aboard Admiral Sun He's flagship. The 31-year-old had been monitoring the battle through every sensor available. "Because they're not energy-based. Your weapons all use exotic particles, quantum effects, or matter energy conversion. The Devourers have adapted to those over millions of years of evolution. But kinetic weapons? Those haven't been used in galactic warfare for 10,000 years. They don't have defenses against simple mass and velocity. But kinetic weapons are so crude." "Crude works," Sun He cut in. "All ships begin attack pattern Epsilon. Let's show them crude." Young Ho received the new orders and grinned. Pattern Epsilon was something human naval commanders had perfected centuries ago on Earth's oceans. Concentrated fire, multiple ships targeting the same enemy vessel simultaneously, overwhelming its ability to respond. "All human cruisers form on the Thunderbolt," he commanded. "We're going after that big one." 6 human cruisers aligned their approach. Ahead of them, a Devourer capital ship the size of a small moon coordinated the enemy fleet. Its hull was thick, armored, and covered in weapons. It had adapted to resist everything the Council fleet could throw at it. But it had never faced a firing squad. All ships locked on target, Tactical reported. Fire together, Young-Ho ordered. Full salvo. 18 railguns fired as one. 18 tungsten carbide rods, each carrying the energy of a small nuclear bomb, crossed space in seconds. The Devourer capital ship's point defenses tried to intercept them. Energy beams splashed harmlessly off the solid metal. The first rod hit the ship's forward section. The second hit 2 meters to the left. The third, fourth, and fifth hit in a tight cluster. By the time the 18th rod struck, the capital ship was breaking apart, its hull fractured beyond any hope of repair. The Devourer fleet hesitated. For the first time since the battle began, their perfect coordination faltered. Their adaptive systems had no answer for weapons this simple. The human fleet pressed the advantage. Hyojin watched from her station on the command ship, analyzing every moment. She had been right. The Devourers could adapt to sophisticated weapons because sophisticated weapons followed rules. Rules that could be learned and countered. But kinetic weapons followed only the laws of physics, laws that couldn't be outsmarted or adapted to. You either built enough armor to stop the projectile or you died. There was no third option. They're retreating, someone announced over the command channel. It was true. The Devourer fleet was pulling back, leaving behind hundreds of destroyed ships. It was the first time they had retreated in the entire campaign. The alien council members couldn't believe it. Synthesizer Uhl's gaseous form rippled on the view screen. The humans, the primitive humans, defeated them. Yes, Day One said simply. He was aboard Sunhee's flagship, watching the battle with quiet satisfaction. We defeated them with rocks. Very fast rocks, but still just rocks. Young-Ho checked his displays. The human fleet had lost 7 ships, less than 15%. The rest of the Council fleet had lost over 70% of their forces. The math was clear. Simple weapons had outperformed advanced ones. All human ships stand down to alert status, Sunhee ordered. Excellent work, people. Today we reminded the galaxy of an old truth. Sophistication is fragile. Simplicity is eternal. On the Thunderbolt, Young-Ho's crew cheered. They had gone into battle as the rear guard, expected to hide and watch. Instead, they had turned the tide. In the end, it didn't matter how advanced your weapons were. What mattered was whether they worked when you needed them, and nothing worked quite as reliably as a heavy object moving very fast. The victory at the contested zone changed everything. Within 2 weeks, the Galactic Council met again in their crystal chamber. This time, nobody laughed when humanity spoke. Ambassador Velthar's crystalline form dimmed with something that might have been shame. The Council acknowledges, the ambassador said formally, that humanity's tactical approach proved effective where ours failed. We request your assistance in restructuring our defensive strategy. Day One stood at the speaker's platform again, but this time he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Admiral Sunhee, Commander Young-Ho, and Hyojin. The engineer carried detailed plans on her data tablet. We'll help, Day One said, but you need to understand something first. You've spent thousands of years making your weapons more complex, more sophisticated, more dependent on exotic resources. The Devourers adapted to all of it because they've encountered advanced civilizations before. They've learned to counter energy weapons, quantum effects, and dimensional attacks. But kinetic weapons? We're probably the first species they've met in 1,000,000 years who still use them. Because we thought them primitive, Velthar admitted. They are primitive, Sunhee said. That's exactly why they work. You can't outsmart physics. A solid object moving fast enough will destroy anything in its path. That's been true since the universe began, and it'll be true until the universe ends. The Council voted unanimously. Humanity would take command of all kinetic warfare divisions. They would train alien forces in human tactics, and they would redesign the Coalition's entire military strategy around weapons the galaxy had abandoned long ago. Special Forces Commander Jae-Min Go led the first training session. At 33, he had spent a decade teaching combat tactics to Earth's elite forces. Now he stood before a group of alien soldiers who had never fired a physical projectile in their lives. Forget everything you know about modern warfare, Jae-Min told them. Energy weapons let you fire from any angle, through obstacles, around corners. Kinetic weapons don't work that way. You need line of sight. You need to understand trajectories. You need to think like soldiers from 1,000 years ago. A Luminoth soldier raised a crystalline limb. Why must we aim manually? Our computers can calculate perfect firing solutions. Because computers can be jammed, hacked, or disabled. Your brain can't. I'm going to teach you to aim the old way with your eyes and your instincts. When your targeting computer fails in the middle of battle, you'll thank me. The training was hard. Alien soldiers struggled with concepts human warriors had mastered millennia ago. Cover and concealment, enfilading fire, bracketing targets, concentrated barrages. These were tactics from Earth's old wars, now being taught to beings who fought battles across dimensions. But they learned. They had to. The Devourers were still out there, and they were adapting their strategies. They couldn't counter kinetic weapons, but they could try to avoid them. Yunji Yoon, a diplomatic envoy, worked with the council to completely restructure their military forces. The 36-year-old had a gift for finding compromise between different cultures. She sat in endless meetings, helping aliens understand why their sophisticated weapons had to become secondary systems. Your phase disruptors are still valuable, she explained to a group of frustrated council members, but not as main weapons. Use them for point defense, for shooting down enemy missiles, for creating barriers. Your gravitational wave weapons? Perfect for ship propulsion and shield generation. Your quantum networks? Excellent for communication and coordination. But for actual combat? Solid projectiles. Every time. The aliens hated admitting their weapons were obsolete, but they hated losing to the Devourers more. Kyung-Soo Nam worked in a secret facility orbiting Earth's moon. The 44-year-old ballistics scientist had been designing weapons since he was 20. Now he worked on something that terrified even him. Project Meteor, we need bigger guns, he told his team. Much bigger. The project was simple in concept but massive in scale. They would build mass drivers on fortified moons throughout the Coalition territory. These would not be ship weapons. They would be siege weapons capable of launching asteroids the size of cities at relativistic speeds. Each projectile would carry destructive power equivalent to a star exploding. The beauty of it, Kyung-Soo explained to Admiral Sun-hee during a briefing, is that the Devourers can't see them coming. No energy signature. No exotic particles. Just a very large rock moving very fast. By the time their sensors detect the mass, it's too late to dodge. How long to build the first one? 3 months. We'll need help from the Luminoth. Their crystalline technology is perfect for the focusing magnets, and the Kryn can provide the raw strength to move the asteroids into position. Sun-hee approved the project. Within weeks, construction began on 12 different moons. The aliens worked alongside humans, following human blueprints, building weapons that would have seemed absurd to them 6 months ago. The war continued on multiple fronts. The Devourers probed for weaknesses, attacking systems defended by pure energy weapons. They found easy victories there. But systems defended by human-designed kinetic systems held firm. The pattern was clear. Bora led a deep strike mission into Devourer territory. Her squadron of 6 corvettes carried only kinetic weapons, making them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. They moved through 3 systems, gathering intelligence before Bora found what she was looking for. There, she said, pointing at her display. That's their nest. Their home base. The structure was massive, built around a black hole. It stretched for light years. A twisted combination of technology and biology. Ships were grown there like fruit on a tree. Millions of Devourers crawled across its surface, building, adapting, evolving. We need to get this data back, her tactical officer said. If we can destroy that nest, we could win the war, Bora finished. But it's deep in their territory, protected by thousands of ships, and it's near a black hole. The gravitational forces alone would tear apart most ships that got close. They escaped with their data and returned to Coalition space. Admiral Sun-hee studied the information for 3 days straight. Then she called a meeting of her best tactical minds. Daewon, Hyojin, Young-ho, Kyung-Soo, and a dozen others gathered in the secure conference room. We need to destroy that nest, Sun-hee said without preamble. It's the heart of their operation. Destroy it and we might break their ability to reproduce and adapt. It's too well defended, Young-ho argued. Even with kinetic weapons, we can't fight through thousands of ships. We don't fight through them, Kyung-Soo said slowly. We go around them, Or rather, we use physics to do our fighting for us. He pulled up calculations on the display. That black hole they built their nest around. It's a weapon we can use against them. If we launch asteroids on specific trajectories, the black hole's gravity will accelerate them to incredible speeds. Near light speed, maybe even higher. We'd be using one of the most powerful forces in the universe as a slingshot. How many asteroids? Sun He asked. 37. Each the size of a small moon. Iron and nickel, very dense. We position them in orbits calculated months in advance. When the time comes, we adjust their trajectory slightly, and they fall toward the black hole. As they accelerate, we ensure they're aimed at the nest. By the time they arrive, they'll be moving so fast that impact will release energy equivalent to a supernova. The room was silent. Then Hyojin spoke. We'd be killing an entire star system, using nothing but gravity and momentum. Yes, Kyung-soo said. And there's nothing the Devourers can do to stop it. They can't adapt to asteroids moving at 95% of light speed. They can't shoot them down. Kinetic impacts at that speed release so much energy that even partial interceptions would be catastrophic. And they can't move their nest. It's too big, too integrated with the black hole's structure. Daewon looked at Sun He. The council will need to approve this. It's an extinction-level attack. I'll present it to them, Sun He said. But I already know what they'll say. We've been losing this war for a year. The Devourers have consumed 100 systems. They won't stop until the entire galaxy is theirs. If we have a chance to end this, we take it. The council meeting was short. Velthar listened to the plan and conferred with the other ambassadors. The vote was unanimous. Operation Slingshot was approved. Young-ho received his orders 3 days later. The Thunderbolt would lead the attack fleet. Their job was to keep the Devourers busy while the asteroids accelerated around the black hole. It would be the largest battle of the war. How long do we need to hold them? He asked. 6 hours, Sun, he replied. 6 hours from when we start positioning the asteroids until impact. Can you do it? Young-ho thought about the thousands of Devourer ships that would be defending their nest. He thought about the casualties his fleet would take. Then he thought about the millions of people the Devourers had already killed. We'll hold them, he said. For 6 hours, for 6 days, for however long it takes. We're fighting with simple weapons, Admiral. But simple doesn't mean weak. We're going to show the Devourers what happens when you underestimate rocks. The fleet began preparations. Asteroids were moved into position, their trajectories calculated with perfect precision. Kinetic weapons were loaded and tested, soldiers trained for the battle of their lives, and somewhere in the darkness between stars the Devourers waited in their nest, not knowing that humanity was about to throw the biggest rocks in history straight at their home. The coalition fleet gathered at the edge of Devourer territory. 2,000 ships representing every species in the Galactic Council. But this time the formation looked different. Human ships were no longer in the rear guard. They formed the front line, their railguns pointing toward the darkness ahead. Commander Young-ho Bei stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt and checked his systems one final time. Behind his cruiser, the rest of the human fleet waited. Beside them, alien ships carried human-designed kinetic weapons. The Luminoth had integrated magnetic accelerators into their crystal hulls. The Kryn had built massive manual loading mass drivers that used their species' natural strength. Even gaseous beings like Synthesizer Ul had found ways to fire solid projectiles. The galaxy had learned. 3 months of training, adaptation, and acceptance. They had put aside their pride and embraced the primitive. Because primitive worked. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Admiral Sun He's voice came over the command channel. This is it. We've spent months positioning those asteroids. In 6 hours, they'll complete their orbits around the black hole and hit that nest with enough force to crack planets. But the Devourers won't let us do this unopposed. They'll throw everything at us. So we hold the line. We buy time. And we show them that humanity's simple tools can break their sophisticated swarm. Young-ho activated his ship-wide communication. Crew of the Thunderbolt, this is your commander. Today we finish what we started. Our weapons are old. Our tactics are ancient. But our purpose is clear. We protect the galaxy. All hands to battle stations. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. When they emerged, they were in hell. The Devourer nest filled the view screen. It was impossible to describe its size. Imagine a structure so large that planets looked like tiny ornaments hanging from its branches. It wrapped around the black hole like a tumor, drawing power from the gravitational forces. Millions of Devourer ships crawled across its surface. More ships than Young-ho had ever seen. Contact in 30 seconds, Tactical reported. All batteries load solid rounds. We're going to make so much noise they won't notice what's happening behind them. The first asteroid had already begun its journey, 3 systems away. Carefully positioned over the past months, it fell toward the black hole. Gravity grabbed it and pulled, accelerating it to speeds that bent physics at the edges. In 5 hours and 57 minutes, it would impact the nest. 36 more would follow at precise intervals, but the Devourers didn't know that yet. Young-ho waited until the enemy ships were in optimal range. Fire. The Thunderbolt's main railgun spoke. Tungsten carbide rods flew across space at 30% of light speed. They hit Devourer ships and punched straight through. No adaptation, no clever defense, just simple physics doing what it had done since the universe began. All across the human fleet, railguns fired. Captain Ji-won Lee commanded the Indomitable with deadly precision, her crew working like a machine. Tae-Yang Choi managed his weapons console perfectly, calculating trajectories that would make ancient artillery officers proud. Bo-Ra-shin's silent arrow danced through the battle, her precision strikes taking out command nodes and coordination centers. The Devourers swarmed forward. Thousands of ships attacked the coalition fleet. Their weapons had evolved to fight energy-based systems, so they struggled against kinetic rounds. But they had numbers. Massive numbers. They're trying to overwhelm us with quantity, Young-ho's tactical officer reported. For every ship we destroy, 2 more take its place, then we destroy them faster. All ships attack pattern Delta. Concentrated fire. Pick your targets and obliterate them. The human fleet had trained for this. They formed firing lines, each ship supporting the others. When Devourer ships tried to flank them, they were met with crossfire. When they tried to close for boarding, they were met with close-range mass driver fire. The aliens fought the way humanity had fought wars for thousands of years, with discipline, coordination, and an understanding that simple tactics executed well beat sophisticated tactics executed poorly. Mi Sun-oh coordinated the battle from Admiral Sun-hee's flagship. Her AI systems connected every human ship, sharing targeting data and positioning information. But she didn't control the battle. The commanders did. The AI was just a tool, and Mi-sun understood something the Devourers never would. Tools don't win battles. People using tools win battles. First asteroid impact in 4 hours, she announced. The Devourers haven't detected it yet. Keep them busy, Sun-hee ordered. All ships increase pressure. Make them think this is our main attack. Young-ho received the order and grinned. Weapons, give them everything. I want every railgun firing continuously. Make them think we're trying to shoot our way through to the nest. The Thunderbolt became a storm of metal. Its railguns fired in rotation, 1 shot every 3 seconds. Reload, charge, fire. Reload, charge, fire. The crew worked with desperate efficiency. In the ship's ammunition bays, loaders moved solid rounds into position with practice speed. Dae-won watched the battle from the command ship, standing beside Sun-hee. He wasn't a military man, but even he could see the pattern. The Devourers were adapting their tactics, not their technology. They couldn't counter kinetic weapons, so they tried to swarm the human ships with numbers, attempting to board them or ram them. It was crude, desperate. They're scared, he said quietly. Yes, Sun-hee agreed. For the first time, they're fighting an enemy they can't outsmart, and it terrifies them. Hours passed. The battle became a grinding stalemate. The coalition fleet held its position, pouring fire into the Devourer swarm. Ships were lost on both sides. The cruiser Daejeon took a suicide ram from a Devourer capital ship and broke apart. The Luminoth vessel Crystal Song was boarded and had to self-destruct. But for every coalition ship lost, the Devourers lost 10. 3 hours to impact, Mi-sun reported. The Devourers finally noticed something was wrong. Their sensors detected massive objects approaching at relativistic speeds. By then, it was too late to do anything about it. They see the asteroids, Tactical reported. Enemy ships are breaking off to intercept. Let them try, Young-ho said. The first asteroid was the size of a small moon, made of iron and nickel. It had been accelerated by the black hole's gravity to 95% of light speed. When Devourer ships tried to shoot it down, their weapons were useless. Energy beams bounced off its surface. Physical interceptors vaporized on contact. At that speed, hitting anything released so much energy that it was like flying into a sun. The asteroid hit the nest. The impact released energy equivalent to a supernova in a confined space. The nest structure, for all its biological mechanical sophistication, couldn't withstand fundamental physics. A section larger than Earth vaporized instantly. The shockwave tore through the nest, cracking its supports, breaking its connections to the black hole. Direct hit, Mi-sun announced. Asteroid 2 impacts in 3 minutes. Asteroid 3 in 6 minutes. They're all on target. Young-ho watched as the second asteroid struck. More of the nest disintegrated. The Devourer's perfect coordination broke apart. Ships fled in all directions. Their hive mind connection was severed when the central nodes were destroyed. They're running, someone said in disbelief. Press the attack, Sun-hee ordered. Don't let them regroup. The coalition fleet surged forward. Now it was a rout. Devourer ships that had seemed invincible were destroyed by the hundreds. Without their coordination, without their ability to adapt collectively, they were just individual creatures facing an organized military force. Asteroid after asteroid struck the nest. By the 10th impact, the structure was coming apart. By the 20th, it was burning. The black hole's accretion disk flared as massive amounts of matter fell into it. By the 37th and final impact, the nest was gone. Just debris and radiation where the Devourer home had been. Hyo-jin watched the sensors from her station. We're detecting no organized resistance. The remaining Devourer ships are fleeing into dark space. Without the nest, they can't reproduce or coordinate. They're just individuals now. Scattered, Daewon said. Broken. The battle was over. The coalition fleet regrouped, counting their losses. They had lost 400 ships. The Devourers had lost everything. Young-ho leaned back in his command chair, feeling exhaustion settle over him. His crew had performed perfectly. They had held the line for 6 hours exactly, and they had done it with weapons that the galaxy called primitive. Status of the Thunderbolt? He asked. Hull integrity at 60%. Railgun barrels need replacing. Ammunition stores depleted, but we're alive, sir. That's all that matters. The journey back to the Galactic Council chamber took 3 days. When the human delegation arrived, the other species stood and applauded. It was unprecedented. Ambassador Velthar's crystalline form glowed with what might have been respect. Humanity, the ambassador said formally. The Council acknowledges your contribution to galactic security. Your tactical approach proved decisive. Your weapons, which we called primitive, saved us all. Daewon stood at the speaker's platform. This time Hyo-jin stood beside him with pride, not nervousness. Admiral Sun-hee was there too, along with Young-ho, Ji-won, Tae-yang, Bo-ra, and all the others who had fought. You called our railguns primitive, Daewon said. You laughed at our kinetic weapons. You forgot that humans survived on Earth by learning one simple skill. We throw rocks better than anyone else. We've been practicing for 3 million years. We started with stones thrown at prey. We moved to spears, arrows, bullets. Then railguns. Now asteroids accelerated by black holes. The tools changed. The principle never did. Mass plus velocity equals stopping power. Kyung-soo stepped forward, holding something in his hand. A smooth stone from Earth. This is from my hometown, he said. It's just a rock, nothing special. But in the right hands, with the right knowledge, this rock could start a landslide. Scale that up, and you get what we did to the Devourers. We killed their nest with rocks. Very big rocks moving very fast, but still just rocks. The Council offered humanity full membership. They offered technology sharing, trade agreements, military alliances. Admiral Sun-hee became Supreme Commander of Coalition Defense Forces. Hyo-jin received the galaxy's highest scientific honor. Daewon was granted a permanent seat on the Council as an elder advisor. But it was what happened next that mattered most. Throughout the galaxy, species began studying human military history. They read about ancient battles fought with spears and shields. They studied naval warfare from wet oceans. They learned about artillery, cavalry charges, and combined arms tactics. They discovered that sophistication had made them weak, dependent on technology they didn't fully understand. humanity taught them to fight with simple tools again, not because simple was always better, but because simple was reliable. A railgun might not be as impressive as a quantum disruptor, but it worked every time. And in battle, reliability mattered more than sophistication. The galaxy changed. Advanced weapons weren't abandoned, but they became support systems. The primary weapons became kinetic. Ships carried railguns beside their phase disruptors. Armies trained in basic tactics alongside quantum warfare. The Galactic Council learned to respect the old ways. Day One stood in the crystal chamber one last time before returning to Earth. He held Kyung-Soo's stone in his hand, feeling its weight. Through the viewport, he could see the stars. Each one represented thousands of worlds that had been saved. All because humanity remembered something the galaxy forgot. Sometimes the most sophisticated weapon is the one you can rely on. And nothing is more reliable than a rock thrown with skill, purpose, and perfect understanding of physics. The Devourers learned that lesson too late. They mocked humanity's primitive tools. Then they watched stars die by them. And the galaxy remembered.